We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show, presented by Line Movement. It is week 16, but what's interesting about this week overall, outside of just the holidays, we have two very interesting slates to talk about. We have 3 games on the Saturday slate to discuss. Obviously, the main slate will still go as planned on Sunday. So I guess a little bit of a double dip, bringing in our weekly guest. He's a senior writer at The Athletic. Follow him on Twitter, @AllInKid. Jake Seeley. Hey. How was your week 15, my man? It sounded like it was a little bit chaotic. So I didn't know if I should be excited, if I should be sad, but how was it, man?
No, it was chaotic from the fact that it's seasonal time and I made a lot of playoffs. So I can tell you right now, I had 3 lineups on DraftKings and only a few on FanDuel. I doubled up on FanDuel, didn't do well on DraftKings because DraftKings, I just went for the fun, like something you and I talked about last week. So I kind of went with it. Is like, how many times have we talked about if you do Tyreek Hill, if you do Derrick Henry, if you do Travis Kelce, like what does the rest of your lineup look like? And especially if you do 2 of them. So on DraftKings, for the fun of it, because I knew I didn't have the time this week. Mm-hmm. So what I went with is I think I sent you one of them, but I went
Saturday,
with
right?
the Derrick Henry, Tyreek Hill team. Mm-hmm. Because I just wanted to see what that would do to the rest of the team and like what you had to do to get around it. And you even said to me, like, I find it interesting avoiding Kamara. Mm-hmm. And just for you, I brought Kamara into that lineup, which was a better lineup if I did. What I initially stuck with was a better lineup. But again, I knew I didn't have time, so I was just having fun with it anyway. But I switched to Pollard. I did get that in the morning. But because of it, naked Minshew, just for the hell of it. Lynn Bowden was in the lineup. Cole Kmet didn't hit. The Cardinals' defense was good despite giving up 26 points. They still hit 10 points at 2,900. But DraftKings, like I said, I didn't have time this week. I knew I wasn't going to have time with this week. Unfortunately, on FanDuel, I did, and I had already built a lineup I didn't even touch, except for the Tony Pollard swap out. But that one, I was able to get Henry, Kamara, Ayuk, Kelce, and Pollard because of all the savings, and that one doubled up.
Build whatever you want on FanDuel, man. Easy game.
The pricing was soft, so it's a lot easier.
Let me ask you this. I know like you're someone that's super focused on rankings and that sort of thing. So there was 2 main, I guess, decision points. It's like, how much do you believe in Tony Pollard in this spot? Obviously on FanDuel, on DraftKings, like the price point got you there. Obviously probably a little bit more efficient than we've seen Zeke be in this offense overall. So I was kind of on the side, like he's just an absolute lock, put him on all your teams. The other side of like, I guess, not getting something right last week, you look across the industry, and these Saints guys were just projecting for so much volume at a very cheap price point because we get Drew Brees later in the week. So I guess the mistake that maybe I made, like, should we have like put a little bit more emphasis like, hey, he's coming back from a pretty major injury in this spot. Like he just wasn't right. So like was the New Orleans chalk bad chalk? Like was everyone wrong? Because it didn't matter what projections you were looking like. All of like Emmanuel Sanders, Traquan Smith, Jared Cook, Kamara, of course, like they're all way up there because they're basically having like their Taysom Hill pricing still. So like, do you think that was a big mistake across the industry? They were just piled on in tournaments.
Not a big mistake, but just a mistake. The reason, so I told you, is when you texted me back instead of fading Kamara is interesting. And I felt like that was kind of a semi like shade that you were throwing my way. But
just
the
busy,
reason
no
was
shade.
The reason I was a little bit off of it is the rust factor, which you saw in the first half. Drew Brees himself still came back and played better in the second half. But the Chiefs' defense has been solid this year. It's been weaker of late, but it's still a solid defense. First game back, all those concerns. And Emmanuel Sanders, honestly, he did what he's been doing. In the 3 games before when Thomas was out and before Brees got hurt, he was between 12 and 15 points. He went out there and did his normal, what he finished with 11 something, I think, yesterday. So Sanders did what he did. Traquan got hurt. You can kind of throw that one out the window. You can't really look at that. I mean, he could hit a big play at any given time. But I think the Brees, Kamara, the reason, this game as a whole on that side was because, you just looked at what you said. The rust factor, the concerns there. The Chiefs side was the way to play, but even Tyreek Hill didn't even hit. Again, the point that I did that lineup was what you and I have talked about is when you pay up for, like Derrick Henry at 28 points,
Huge win if you faded him. Huge win if you faded him. If you got 25. Yeah.
But what I was going to say is you got 28 points and you're not happy about it. Like when you're hitting the 9 price, that's the thing is like you got to really, really destroy it to have it work out. And Tannehill vultured him twice. So to go back to Tony Pollard, you brought that question up and you can look at it for going this week. Now, you know me, I hate taking away. Don't give him that play. But that last play where San Francisco was selling out to stop the run, there was like they know this was their only chance. That was what 40 yards, 50 yards in the touchdown. Before that, he was averaging like 2.6 yards per carry. That offensive line is still the issue. The reason Tony Pollard was even a decent play even before that, like even if you do take that play away, is because of the passing game upside. So if Zeke is not out there again, it's fine. But you saw how much they skyrocketed his price already.
It's true. I mean, they were ready for it for sure. I think like there's always an argument, at least in DFS, for like some of the stuff that happens late, because people like the casual people have already made their teams at that point. So Tony Pollard in the $10 fantasy football millionaire on DraftKings, only 12% owned. In the live final, he was 32% owned. Kamara was 75% owned in the live final, where there was late swap available. So again, like one of the mistakes, I think people, and Leone mentioned this last night on the Tilt Space as well. If you were behind, or you were like even like had a reasonable team, but maybe you didn't have one of like the super mega studs from 1 p.m., what are you doing staying on Alvin Kamara? I get the ceiling. You still need that.
No sense.
No sense. Like I personally didn't think he'd be anywhere near 75% owned in the live final. He's just assumed more people in there were going to be late swapping anyways, but he was 41% in the millionaire maker. So I guess that'll give you an idea sometimes of stakes, how much it can change. But interesting ownership week overall, especially in something like the final. There was a lot of mistakes I think that can be made. Jalen Hurts obviously goes crazy. If you move to all your shares to Kyler, you probably feel okay, but that price discount that you got from Hurts, who we talked about a lot last week as well, was kind of the difference from some of these teams at the top. I think if you wanted to kind of play, we were just talking about Derrick Henry, if you wanted to play the leverage side of that and be a little bit lighter on Derrick Henry, maybe roll out some Tannehill stacks. Those ones are the ones that kind of got there. I had a 1 p.m. only team kind of as a hedge that ended up clearing like $3 or $4 grand profit, just basically paid for all my other entries. And it was more of a hedge than anything because I had a little bit, probably too much Derrick Henry exposure on the main slate. But let's play a 1 p.m. only team with Tannehill just to make sure that I cover some bases there. So that worked out. Sometimes that doesn't work out, but it's like baseball when you're stacking up an offense, but you play the pitcher on another team, or you play the opposing pitcher on a different lineup. Yeah, just in case. But overall, man, interesting week. That's pretty much all I got to say about it. You got anything else?
No, I think you hit all the important points here. And you look at it, you can go through and you scroll some of the best lineups you see out there actually don't even have Kamara in it, to your point about pivoting out of it for the second half. I think a lot of them, the ones that I did see hit well, and I think this was a smart move. I don't know if they also pivoted off their quarterback and maybe were playing somebody else, or they're just planning to play Kyler Murray naked, as I see a lot of people switching out with Hopkins into the flex. So I don't know if that was the plan of a lot of people, but either way, that was smart to do.
I think a lot of people moved to Hopkins because, like you see, I didn't think he was like 30% in the live final. I don't think he was anywhere near that in some of the normal tournaments. So I think that ended up being like a popular pivot. A lot of people came off of Akers as well. Akers was only like 13% in that. But then you see Kyler get all the way up to 30. And yeah, apparently I thought that Nuke was a really good pivot. Didn't help you a ton in the final, but some of these like Saints pass catchers ended up being so high owned that as soon as they started to fail, you knew that your Mahomes stacks were probably in trouble as well. So interesting overall. Interesting week upcoming here. Week 16. We do have a Saturday slate to talk about here, Jake. So let's do a little bit of a walkthrough. I know it's earlier in the week, but I do want to go through these 3 games on Saturday overall. So I'm going to bring us over to DraftKings. Tampa Bay, Detroit, San Francisco, Arizona, Miami, and the Raiders. We also have like a decent amount of late swap equity here as well with these games so spread out, like a little bit of a mini Thanksgiving, Jake. So this is kind of interesting overall. We're just going to go position by position a little bit quicker than we normally do. So at the quarterback position, Kyler Murray, 7,500, and then a big drop off in price. Kyler Murray is in this game number 2. So I think we're just going to probably have to continue to talk about it, the game number based on what the late swap stuff will be like here, but some pretty cheap quarterback options here as well. We got Tua, Stafford, Brady. What are we thinking here at quarterback, Jake? What are your initial thoughts?
So as a whole, I expect the Tampa Bay side of things to be a heavy ownership. And I think that you're going to see a lot of people with the thought process of what you're talking about with the late swap go on the Tampa Bay side, go with Brady Brown, go with Brady Gronk Brown, go, possibly if Ronald Jones is still out, which he might play, and then stay away from the backfield because who the hell knows. But, if he's out, people are going to come back to Fournette, who essentially, I heard you talking about him earlier, Fournette's kind of like his LeGarrette Blount now. Like, it wasn't an efficient running day. He just happened to get the 2 touchdowns. So think of that. I think that's a good parallel for everybody out there. He's LeGarrette Blount if he doesn't get the rushing touchdowns, but that's why you're going with him. But I think a lot of people are going to go that route with the mindset of saying, all right, Tampa Bay hits, I'm good. I keep my lineup. But because it's the first game, Tampa Bay doesn't hit, I'll give myself all these options to play with later in the day.
Yeah, I actually really like that Tampa Bay's in the first game, believe it or not, because like there is some uncertainty on like who to pair Brady with. If you happen to hit on that stack in the first game, you're feeling pretty good. So there's a couple ways you can go about it. Obviously, Tampa Bay is going to be pretty chalky on this slate overall, so you can kind of take a shot and hope that you hit on some of that chalk. But also, like I think taking some chances on some flyers in game number one is a good way to go about these slates as well. Like you see someone like Leone in the live final play DeAndre Swift last week at super low ownership in the game number one. He basically was ahead at that point at running back of some of these other guys that had paid a lot more for that type of ceiling projection. So I like that quite a bit, like getting weird with this game overall. So we'll talk about them a little bit more. Actually, let's do this. So I think that these slates probably make more sense to go game by game, right? Instead of position by position. So let's stick in this Tampa Bay and Detroit game. Obviously, Brady, 6,800, Stafford at 56. If we get Stafford in this game. At running back, we have Swift. Obviously, kind of the whatever happens in Tampa Bay, but Fournette, you said it, he's 5,500. Still a nice price tag for him. I wouldn't be playing Fournette on Brady teams. He's not active in the passing game enough. I think he had 3 catches in last week's game, but just their overall correlation is not very strong. I kind of think that Fournette was bad chalk last week personally. I think he kind of got 2 suckouts there with basically 2 guys. I mean, Brady could have had 2 more touchdowns in that game. Yeah, literally. So that was kind of rough, not having enough Fournette last week, but nice price. I'll give you that. Nice price. At the wide receiver position, we have Evans, Godwin, basically priced the same, so pick your poison there. Kenny Golladay, I'd imagine, is still out, questionable at this moment, but he's probably still out. Antonio Brown, Marvin Jones, 4,900.
There you go. 4,900 still is just stupid.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. That's a price that stands out, right?
You know this. You actually used the clip before when I talked about it, and it was the DK Metcalf situation. And you say that you shy away from corner matchups. I use it, and what that video was, for anybody that didn't see it, was using it, but watching the ownership is that it comes into play, but it's not going to determine my entire lineup, but it will when I see ownership relative to it. So I bring that up to say Marvin Jones' only bad game without Kenny Golladay was when he was facing Jair Alexander. Outside of that, he's hit almost every single game, and I mean, he's hit every game, but almost every single game he's super hit, like he's DFS hit. I don't know how he's 4,900. This feels like an oversight.
Double dip of first looks today. I think that Saturday slate is going to be a lot of fun, actually. They toss some decent teams on there. We get like a Thanksgiving type of slate. Cody Huffman in the chat goes, someone say hockey? Yeah, we do like hockey around here. We're going to get some of that stuff going, I think, in the Patreon for sure. So let's touch on the Patreon quick. I know there's some people probably coming over from Jake's tweet and whatnot. So if you're not a member of the Patreon, it is $1 per month, 25 cents per week. The benefits in general, obviously our Discord chat community, talking fantasy football, DFS, sports betting. We do have our weekly DraftKings tournament where we go through and kind of get some bragging rights in general. It's a free roll, but if you do take it down, $30 Amazon gift card. What we are doing, and I keep forgetting to mention this, is I'm going to continue to put $1 into the pot every rating and review that we get on Apple Podcasts. So for the Super Bowl, we're going to do a showdown slate tournament, and then however much we run it up, that's going to be the prize to first. Maybe we'll tier it to like first through third, something like that. We do have our NFL Red Zone stream room in there, of course, and then an exclusive 15 to 30 minute live stream directly before kickoff. So get in the Patreon, get in the Discord. It's been a lot of fun. We had some pretty big sweats overall as a group this past week, so always a good time. Yeah, that's. I think he's going to be super chalky at that price point. Like the volume has been there. He's been scoring touchdowns. I don't understand the price personally. We saw Rob Gronkowski in a pretty, difficult matchup last week in the spot against Detroit. Play everyone against Detroit. Rob Gronkowski's 3,600, so I think that's at least interesting. You hate burning that tight end slot, I guess, in the beginning, especially if he ends up being chalky, but that's a nice price. TJ Hawkinson, I guess if anyone had him in season long, they're pretty upset with last week overall at 4,600. So I'm trying to get an idea if there's any like kind of off the board plays in this game overall that we get at like some lower ownership. Is there anyone that stands out that you think will go lower owned? Is it Swift again? Do people just not want to play guys against Tampa Bay in the run game? It's kind of worked recently, at least. And
it kind of has worked, and Tampa Bay continues to be good. I think outside of maybe 1 or 2 games, it's been bad news to go against them. But you're going to get enough people because of the price and because of how good Swift is on a per touch basis. I don't see Swift's ownership being too low, where it's going to be such a value, like it's 4 or 5% or anything like that. I think if you're looking for gambles in this game, I wouldn't be surprised if Antonio Brown's going to have a high ownership after what just happened last week. And to be honest with it, if you're looking at a correlation for Tom Brady, is Antonio Brown's his favorite receiver. Period. Done. He's just not on the field as much as everybody else. But even just this past game, he was on the field about 60 to 70% of the time as Evans and Godwin, and was the most targeted wide receiver. And Brady loves him. So I think you'll see a lot of people smartly go to Antonio Brown. So if you're going in this game, it would be on the Detroit side. You maybe take a shot at Quintez Cephas, potentially hitting one. Amendola is always around, but Amendola is just, he's a floor play. We're not talking about him for DFS. And, if you want to take the gamble at tight end and maybe Brate catches the touchdown instead of Gronkowski, but this wouldn't be a game where I'm getting too crazy. I know it's fun to see you hit on somebody early, but it's such a sparse amount of choices in this game.
I'm with you. Bucks D 3,800. They're pretty expensive, but against Detroit, I think that's interesting. If you want to pay all the way down for the Lions at 2K, maybe you luck into a pick six from Brady where there's going to be some pass attempts, at least at the beginning of this game. Somewhat interesting. So let's move on to the game.
It looks like first half Brady for the entire game. There's always a chance. And then, that would be the only intriguing one, but they have nothing on defense. There's nobody left on that defense anyway.
Yeah, I would imagine. I haven't even seen the Vegas line on this one. I imagine the spread's pretty large. So let's touch on game number 2. We do have the San Francisco 49ers and Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, Kyler Murray has looked really good since he's kind of looked a little bit healthier. He's running a lot more. Yeah, in general. What did he end up with on the ground last week? Let's take a peek here. He had 8 rush attempts for 29 yards. Obviously, got in the end zone on the ground as well. So we got Kyler at 7,500. He's very expensive overall. Probably not going anywhere near the San Francisco quarterback situation. We'll see how banged up Mostert is. He's 5,400 if he gets in there. If not, we got Jeff Wilson at 5K. Kenyon Drake, 5,200. Edmonds, who was supposed to be limited, it still dropped 15 DraftKings points on us last week at 4,600. So the running back situation, kind of gross. I wanted to see what Nuke's price was. 8,300 for Nuke. Ayuk, still too cheap, right? 6,700.
It's still too cheap. Even last week, as chalky as he was still a good play. You got the rushing touchdown. They're just going to find the way to get the ball in his hands. To go back to the running back situation, if Mostert's out, you could gamble on Jeff. And you're just talking about pure volume at this point. It's something I said to you last week because I wasn't playing him in general, but if you're giving me the 50-50 backfield and I'm forced to choose, I'm going to choose the one who's getting the carries inside the 5 and the 10-yard line. Right. I think Mostert finally got one of them, but Wilson was still getting the majority to work again. So if there is no Mostert, I think Wilson at 5K would be a very, very, very strong play, even if he's chalk.
I like that quite a bit. Some of these cheaper guys, Christian Kirk, 3,800, Kendrick Bourne, Larry Fitzgerald gets in the end zone for the first time last week. He's 3,400. This game, I don't know. I don't really like that this is the second game overall. Like, this is one where, like, if you choose wrong, you can kind of ruin anything good that you had going after the first game. So I think this is one that's kind of interesting.
You just circled over somebody a couple of times I was going to bring up.
Let's hear it. Who did I circle over?
The Q on Richie James. So there's two things here. Everybody sees Bourne last week, but Bourne was at that garbage at the end of the game. And if not for the garbage at the end of the game, Richie James was out there actually getting more opportunities. And I'm not saying go play Richie James, but if you're going to
targets
into this game, if you're going to go heavy into this game, he was the one that's running as the number 2 alongside Ayuk. Again, Bourne's was the garbage situation. Not that Bourne's not a fine play to chase a touchdown, but the usage for James was surprising for me. And if you're looking for dirt cheap, 3,400, and I know a lot of people stay away, it's something I write a piece for the footballers. It's called The Blind Spot. And part of it is that thought process, and you see a lot of people skip past price ranges when other names stick out. And then a lot of things that people inherently do is just skip past the people with the red. They see the cue or they see the question, and it's out of sight, out of mind. So Richie James, if he's playing super dart throw, but a dart throw.
Do you have any interest in the Arizona running backs in this spot? I feel it feels kind of thin at this point.
I would shake my head no the entire time saying that.
Let's move. Let's
Chase Edmonds was questionable all the way up, and they got 50% of the work.
Dude, I can't even talk about it. The guy that won the live final had him at 1%. Can't even talk about it.
Kudos, dude.
Yeah. Game number 3. Also, if you're playing the live final, just make sure and burn your flex on all 8 of your teams. That's something that's really sharp to do if you want to win $2.5 million.
Did he really do that?
Yep, every team, 8 teams, all the flexes were burned. Game number 1. I can't even talk. There'll be a review up on the channel. We just went through it. Check out that video. I think it's probably poked up over there somewhere. All right. So Miami. and the Las Vegas Raiders. So in general, we know we're not going to have Derek Carr in the spot. I believe he's out multiple weeks with that groin injury. Marcus Mariota's 5K. 5K for Marcus Mariota. I think the matchup's not great, obviously, against Miami, but that's a fantastic price for a guy that's going to run. Tua is 5,400 as well. Very cheap quarterbacks in this one.
So there's two problems here with the Mariota thing. So one is you can't really pivot to him with pricing. You either have to make this call or not, because that's the problem. Like, unless, I don't know, I haven't gone through all of the correlations with the quarterbacks and wide receivers. Like, maybe there is some pricing there that I haven't seen yet where you could stack, and I haven't looked through it completely. But the Mariota is, because he's 5K, I just feel he's going to have ownership because people are going to be excited about that. The Miami defense is really good. So I've been concerned about the Miami defense for almost all year long, and they've only given up a handful of 20-plus point games. And one of those games where they didn't, they limited Patrick Mahomes. Now, Patrick Mahomes still threw almost 400 yards and 2 touchdowns, but they intercepted him 3 times. That was the game where everybody was like, what the hell is going on with Patrick Mahomes? Miami defense is really good. I like Mariota. He's fun. He's one of the top 3 backups in the NFL.
Yep.
But this just feels like this feels like when Devontae Booker was replacing Josh Jacobs. Like, it feels like it's that price trap. You're not going to get what the starter is going to give you, and you're not going to get what you just saw last week.
Dolphins defense, 4K, the most expensive defense on this 3-game slate. But we know from way back, Mariota will take sacks. Like, that's one thing that that he will do. It's a pretty decent offensive line situation overall. So I'm interested to see where the ownership goes on the Vegas side of this game. Josh Jacobs is at 6,600. I guess if we wanted to go to one of the running backs in this game, would we prefer just to be on the Vegas side, or do we believe in the Ahmed play at 5,600? I don't know. It's Breda is 4K, like a 3-game slate, right? So we're trying to figure out where to go.
Don't forget, Gaskin could be back.
Oh, right. So, he was on the COVID list. He was not hurt. Yep. Yeah,
Gaskin could come back, which now you have Gaskin, Ahmed, and Breda. So just if you want to take a flyer and hope that one of them. But the concerning thing is that Ahmed came back and immediately led that backfield, like the touches he was getting before that. So if Gaskin comes back, does Gaskin get that workload too? Does Gaskin completely split with Ahmed? It could be a messy situation. So running back wise, I don't ever want somebody to be out or hurt, and he's not hurt, it's just COVID, but kind of don't want Gaskin to come back and then maybe take a chance on Ahmed.
We talk about just skipping over guys with red. What do we do at wide receiver in this game, man? It's all red. We got Devontae Parker questionable. We got some COVID list stuff in here. We got a bunch of guys, obviously, on the Miami side that are battling through some injuries. So I guess this is kind of a gross, display of position players here at the wide receiver position. At tight end, obviously, Waller at 7K. That's an interesting price point, but I kind of like that he's in the last game. Gesicki, if we get Gesicki 4,400 in this one. Any thoughts on just the pass catchers overall in this game, number 3?
Yeah, Aguilar is always going to be boom or bust. I think that at 4,500, if you want to take a chance on that, if you are going to go with the Vegas side and you are going to go with Mariota, that would be the chance to take here. Ruggs he's another one. COVID could be back. Bowden's just a floor. I didn't really want to use Bowden last week, mostly because where's the upside? 7 catches, 63 yards, something like that. Yep. And so pass catching wise, Renfrow being out makes things a little bit more interesting for Aguilar and Ruggs. Parker, I'm a sucker for Parker. That's the problem. I'll just admit it. I'm a sucker for Parker. So at 5,500, if he's healthy and back, Tua hasn't been the best news for him, but who else is Tua going to throw to at this point? I mean, everybody was on Mac. Well, not everybody, but it was people, Mac Hollins last week, but we saw Tua just has nobody else to throw to at this point.
Yeah. Let's go through each position, one price that really stands out since this is earlier in the week. I think at quarterback, I don't know if there's one that really. I guess I'll take the easy way out. I'll say Mariota at 5K. Anything at quarterback that really stood out price wise?
Tua at 54. Okay. If you want to go there, if you want to go with the savings route, I mean, you just hope that he has one of those games where the score just gets out of hand all of a sudden and nobody's playing defense. But that's my concern, is Miami's defense.
Yep. Okay. At running back, I think that just the Fournette price point at 5,500, I know he wasn't very good on the ground, but the touchdown expectation against this Detroit team is going to be extremely high. Will Ronald Jones be back at this COVID-19 list? Is there a chance that he plays in this game?
I think there is. It depends. This is such a cloudy situation all the time because there's always the close contact where you can return in the same week. You got tested, but you had no symptoms, which means 10 days. And then if you have symptoms, it's 14 days. but they don't seem to be disclosing at this point which one of the three. And
Sure.
I think that's why some people are complaining, NFL-wise, this is just a sidebar, some people are complaining that some NFL teams are taking advantage of it. Like the fact that Ronald Jones had the busted finger, some people are like, did he really have COVID? Or are you just putting him on there to free up the roster spot because he's got a broken finger? So who knows? He could be out there. And if Ronald Jones is out there, like I said, I know, look, one of them could hit, and it could be Ronald Jones, but I would probably just stay away if they're both playing.
Okay. So I'll let you give is there anyone else that stands out at running back? We can give you a pass as well. So I kind of want to fly through this.
Like I said, if no Mostert, Jeff Wilson.
Got it. All right. At wide receiver, I'll leave the layup one for you. Brandon Ayuk at 6,700 still seems very underpriced to me. I assume there's one in game number one that you're considering as probably going to be the chalk, right?
Yeah, we already talked about Marvin Jones. Just put him in your lineup and figure everything else out.
Got it. Tight end, I think Rob Gronkowski is significantly underpriced at 3,600 in this spot. Anything else from a price perspective? I guess we didn't talk about Jordan Reed. We didn't really talk about Dan Arnold in that game number 2. But price-wise, anything interesting at tight end?
You brought him up, Gronkowski. Yeah, 3,600. That just seems so weird.
Really
that
low.
one to Marvin Jones. Like, I almost feel like they're baiting us into just saying Marvin Jones, Gronkowski, and then go figure out the other 8 spots.
Right. All right. So the 3-game Saturday slate breakdown. Let me know in the comments who your favorite play is on this slate. Under 5K on DraftKings. We'll go with that. Toss a like on this video. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you follow Jake on Twitter. He's at AllInKid.